Okay, welcome guys to our study abroad info session. My name is Ayanda, as most of you might have come to know, and I'm with my sister Ndombi. We are the Bingo Sisters, and we've started this initiative called Uplifted Abroad to Success to help our fellow Africans find and leverage opportunities to study abroad. Okay. So I'm just going to cover the topics that we're going to go through today. Firstly, we'll go through the purpose of the info session. Then we'll do a panelist introduction when I introduce myself, and then Dombi will also introduce herself. Then we'll go into the steps of how to find an institution, how to find funding, and then once you've got your opportunity, how to prepare for a life abroad. And then lastly, we'll go into an open panel discussion just to iron out whatever issues there are at that stage. So why we formulated this info session, firstly, we are from a family where we're very passionate about personal development. And we're also very passionate about inspiring personal development in others. And then we also noted that we were deeply concerned about the big social issue that is relating to our country today, which is the unemployment rate, which is hovering around the 35% mark. And then within that number, we noticed that the youth were the most affected because about 50% of the youth who can actually work are unemployed. Within that, we also noticed that there's a deeper concern when it comes to youth graduates, because as you would know, a lot of the youth don't always walk out of university with a job offer. Sometimes they have to wait months or even years to find a job. So with all of this, we notice that there is a gap within our communities, as there's limited mentors as well as access to information within our community, which often creates a hindrance when it comes to access to opportunities that the youth can use to better their lives. So we then had to sit down and say, with all of the skills and knowledge that we have, what can we do to actually help people? And this is when we came up with this initiative called Uplifted Abroad to Success, where we're actively helping people with the information that we know, and also building a community of like-minded people to form part of a community where we're actively looking for opportunities to study abroad and better our lives. Next slide. So I'll just delve into a little bit about my story. As I've mentioned, my name is Ayanda. I'm the avid dreamer of the family. I come up with all these strange ideas, and then I say to Ndombi, let's do this, let's do that. How about we implement this, or we help people in this way? I'm not always the best when it comes to execution, but I mean, I dream up the ideas, and then Ndombi supports me there on the execution side because she's quite meticulous in her approach. So just a little bit of background in terms of my professional experience. I work within the retail sector. I've worked for about 10 years within the corporate retail space. Within merchandise planning, I've worked for quite a number of the major retailers that we have in South Africa. And then quite recently, I've joined international brand operating in the branch within South Africa, where I've become a manager within my profession of merchandise planning. So just to backtrack a little bit, it's actually quite interesting because my story didn't have the straightforward start. So when you see me, you're like, oh, Ayanda, you are working in the corporate space. But I actually failed my first qualification and got kicked out and excluded from UCT. The backstory behind that was that, you know, if you are over 35, you'd know that at a time when we were in high school and matriculating, if you were good at maths and science, your parents would encourage you to go study engineering, you know. So I naturally wanted to study the fashion side or, you know, creative arts, jewelry design, but my mom was just like, you're gonna have to go and study engineering. You're good at maths and science, and you're not gonna make money doing fashion related or studying within the arts. you know? So anyway, I went to UCT, got accepted for mechanical engineering. And I mean, if you know the numbers of people who are accepted into UCT compared to the applications, it's quite slim. You know, even Prof. Mamuketi recently mentioned it in a podcast where she said that they get about 90,000 applications for first year. And within that 90,000, they only accept 4,000 people. So it was quite a push for me to get in. And then, you know, I got in. I realized very quickly that it wasn't my passion, especially when we went for practicals and we were doing lathe and welding. And I was just like, you know what, I actually don't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. And then that's when I actually lost interest. I didn't push hard enough. I didn't study hard enough. And you know what? I failed. And then I got kicked out within my second year. And then I plucked up the courage to tell my mom that, you know what? I actually want to go and study what I really wanted to study, which was within the design field. I went to study fashion design. She wasn't happy initially, but she came around at some point. And then I studied my fashion design diploma. I then went on to do another diploma in surface design. And the irony of it all was that when I started looking or actively looking for a role within the fashion industry, the very first role that I got was within the merchandise planning space, because they picked up from my psychometrics that I was quite analytical. And even though I had failed my mechanical engineering, they were like, you know, from that 2 years of engineering, it obviously means that you're quite good at maths. So you would be suited for this role of merchandise planning, where they usually took people from a business or a commercial background. So that was quite like an ironic way of getting into it. And it's only once I started to grow within my profession and hone in on my skills that I then started using company funds in order to study towards my business qualification using their money. So I then continued to progress and study. And today I'm a professional in my field, and I've gotten to the point where I'm in a management role within the field. But the point of the matter is that, you know, with all of that studying and changing courses, I only started my professional career at the age of 27. But if you meet me now, you wouldn't say I started my role, you know, I started working at the age of 27. So the point of the matter is that I just want to encourage you with my story today and say, firstly, it's never too late to start. Secondly, use every opportunity that is given to you. You know, if it is whatever, within a company, within a job role that you're doing, no matter if that role is not necessarily on your path at that stage, leverage the opportunities to get to where you want to be. And also just the fact that you can come from failure and turn your life around, change direction, and make a success of it. So that's what I want you guys to take from my story. And then I will go into my sister's introduction, Ndombi, the effective executor.
Thank you very much, Ayanda, and welcome to everyone who is on the session. As Ayanda has mentioned, I'm the effective executor, and I also had sort of a similar beginning as she did. I too was good with mathematics from primary, and then when I got to high school, I became good in chemistry. So it made sense that I was going to pursue a qualification in the science field. So once I matriculated, I registered for a BSc majoring in chemistry and physics with the University of Northwest. And after a year, my mom was just like, what are you going to do with this BSc qualification? Why don't you try switching to chemical engineering? And then in 2002, I registered with UCT, doing my first year in chemical engineering. And the first year, I actually failed my major subject. I got to repeat it the second year, and I passed, moved on to second year, and eventually got academically excluded from the institution, to a point where one of my lecturers informed me that I was not cut out to be a chemical engineer. But I did not let that defeat me. And I was determined to prove her wrong. So what I did is I switched institutions. I then went to CPUT, where I registered for a national diploma in chemical engineering. I completed my national diploma, my BTech, and then for a year and a half after completing my BTech in chemical engineering, I struggled to find employment. Luckily for me, the National Research Foundation had an internship program, which was placing graduates who were struggling to find employment into public and private institutions for a period of 12 months for them to gain experience, with the hope that they would either be absorbed by the company at the end of the contract, or they would use the experience that they have gained to seek employment elsewhere. And I was placed in the same department where I studied my chemical engineering at CPUT. And after 6 months of being placed, I was given a fixed contract. However, it was not within the field that I studied. It was a fixed contract as an admin assistant. And for 6 years, I think I moved from admin assistant posts in different departments up until 2016, where I was then appointed as a laboratory technician in the chemical engineering department at CPUT, where amongst my duties, I was responsible for demonstrating practicals to students who had registered for the different qualifications that we were offering in the department. And as Anna has mentioned, we are passionate about personal development as well as inspiring personal development in others. So in my interaction with my students, I loved encouraging them to think outside the box, to try and achieve their best. And I felt that as a technician, I didn't have sufficient time enough to make an impact on my students. And I actually wanted to transition from being a technical staff member to an academic staff member. But that meant that I needed to study further. So after my first master's, which failed dismally due to lack of supervision, in 2019, I registered a second master's starting from scratch. And in December 2021, I graduated with a cum laude. And the intention was that from January 2022, I would start applying for lecturing positions throughout institutions in South Africa. After 4 months of not even getting an acknowledgement of my application, my sister was like, listen, there are opportunities for you to do your PhD abroad for free and get paid for it. So as the effective executor, I did my research. I applied for 3 positions, 2 in the UK and 1 in Ireland. And then in October last year, 2022, I relocated to Ireland to come and do my PhD in civil engineering at the University of Galway on a fully funded scholarship. So what I'd like for you to take away is that you should never let anyone dictate what you can and cannot be. The key to your future or your destiny is solely relying on yourself. So you should work hard to change whatever narrative that another person is trying to tell about you.